All right, perennial ACC champions and college football playoff participants, the Clemson Tigers, heading to spring practice this week. We got BGPO Football Funk, DeAndre on the line, along with Jason Priester from allclemson.com. Please, before we dive into the conversation, like the video, share it out on social media, so let people know that we are on live right now. And if you're watching the replay, do the same thing. If you enjoy the content, other people will as well. So just share the videos out on social media. Guys, how we doing tonight?
Great.
I'm doing good, man. Appreciate you having me on, Mark.
Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the conversation all the time with you guys talking up the Tigers. So DeAndre gave us a pretty good list of what we need to talk about tonight. And of course, I'm going to review the live chat to look through the comments and the questions to see what people are talking about there. So we are talking nothing but Clemson football for the next hour or so. Let's start. DeAndre, you brought up the offensive line and what needs to be sorted out there in 2021.
Well, we're going to be looking at placing Carmen Jackson. McFadden, they're looking at him to flip him over to left tackle possible. If Willie Parks don't work out, we got to find a center. We had the number 3 recruited center in the whole nation, 4-star, come out of Maryland this past year. I can't say his name yet, but he's pretty good. I want to see more push up the middle. Putnam was a big recruit, beat out Florida State from the state of Florida. He was inconsistent with his play last year. We get a chance to look at some other guys. March Mays, who's out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Brian Tucker, pretty good offensive lineman. Paul Tucker, who we're gonna see what they're gonna do next year. To see what type of capability they can move the pocket with, because we don't have ETN no more just to make plays for us.
Yeah, going into next year, the offensive line's got to be one of the top priorities going in, as Clemson starts up spring practice. They lose 2 starters, left tackle and the center. Like you say, I think there's a possibility we see McFadden slide over from the right tackle spot to the left tackle spot. But I don't think it's out of the question that we could see Walker Parks win that job on the left side, McFadden stay on the right side. Going to be a lot of competition, a lot of things to work out between now and September. Clemson's biggest problem last year, to me, was on the interior of the offensive line. The run blocking was horrendous. Like you mentioned, Will Putnam, he was inconsistent, in his sophomore season. I think that they are going to really push him this spring and try to get him to take that next step. It wouldn't, if he doesn't, it would not shock me to see him get beat out. There's a number of guys behind him that would love to have that job, man. And the biggest position battle is going to be at center. I know they've been, what's the back? Can't even remember the backup center. Not Rayburn, the other guy. I'm drawing a blank right off the top of my head. Anyways, he's been groomed for the job. I don't think it's set in stone that he's going to win it, man. You mentioned Ryan Linthicum, the true freshman coming in. He's going to push him for that job. And I don't know that he can beat him out, but I definitely think he can make the 2 deep. He's got that nastiness that you want in your offensive lineman. That's something that Clemson was missing along the offensive line last year. They just didn't have that nastiness. They weren't real physical, especially on the interior, man. They got pushed around a lot. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that they're going to try and work on this spring is starting afresh along that offensive line, trying to implement a new attitude, so to speak.
Talking up Clemson football, enjoy everybody jumping in here in the live chat here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We got BGPO Football Funk, DeAndre talking Clemson with us, as well as Jason Priester. Join his content there on allclemson.com on SI. It's allclemson.com on SI with Jason Priester right there. Zachary asking a question here. Do you think Miami is Clemson's biggest competition in the ACC this year?
No, Carolina by 4.
I think Miami's going to be good this year, man. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how fast Derek King can get back from that knee injury. I think they got a lot of pieces on defense, and depending on how fast, like I said, King can get back, I definitely think Miami's got a shot in the Coastal, man. I think it's going to come down to them in Miami, who I think they could be Clemson's biggest competition. Definitely one of the top 2 teams. I think it's them in North Carolina, no doubt about it.
I'll go with an underdog too, North Carolina State, because remember they were young 2 years ago. I know a lot of people don't feel that North Carolina State is that good or develop their players, but every so often, every 4 or 5 years, they'll come up with a pretty good team. You got to watch State. I mean, State's beat us in the 80s when we were really good and stopped us from probably some major bowls. Recent history, they done beat us when we were ranked number 7 in the nation. They gave us scares with Deshaun Watson. So you got to watch NC State. I mean, they don't put a lot of players in the pros the last, probably 5 or 6 years. Hunt, Chubb, a couple of the quarterbacks. I mean, Samuel that played for the Steelers. I mean, they're pretty good. So I would go with those 3 teams. And you never know when Georgia Tech's going to show up either, because, I mean, they got a good recruiting area, so you just never know. I know Clemson beat them 73-17 last year. But I look at those 3 teams.
Nah, I'm not too high on North Carolina State, man. Dave Dorn's still the coach last time I checked, man. He's good for about 8 wins, and then after that, maybe 9. But I like Boston College, man, too, in the ACC. I think they're going to take another step forward next season in second year under that head coach. And with that quarterback they got up there, I really like him. I think they could be the 2nd or 3rd best team in the Atlantic next year.
George is telling us that, just for the record, I've never touched Howard's Rock. I swear I haven't. And then David follows up by asking, what is Howard's Rock? So somebody give us a history lesson.
Howard Rock was a piece of rock they found out in Death Valley, California. And he used to use it, Frank Howard used it as a doorstop. And then one day somebody suggested that they use it and to rub and say magical powers come out and don't touch my rock if you ain't going to give 100%, and it sits on top of the hill. It's been chipped away over the years, but hey, it's a pretty big tradition at Clemson.
It's kind of like Notre Dame's tradition of touching the sign. When they run out, Clemson touches the rock when they run out onto the field. They've been doing it ever since Frank Howard was the head coach. Been doing it a long time. With Brent Musburger called it the most exciting 25 seconds in college football one time.
Rod Farvo will let you know that we will get to your questions about the freshmen. We're going to go through a number of talking points. So with Clemson going to spring practice for the first time, I'm probably asking a question that's null and void. The way these spring practices nowadays are kept like military camps without any information being leaked out. But they have been in practice for about a week now, right?
Clemson started yesterday.
Oh, just the last
Wednesday.
couple days. All right. We can't expect anything to have come out at this point. But, yeah, it's very difficult these days to get any information out of spring practice.
Well, one shocking thing that we got to look at is that Justin Foster retired from football. So that kind of hurts Clemson depth on the defensive end part. And, you got Mascow, you got Xavier Thomas coming back. You got Henry. And who else do you got over there? You got those 4 guys. Miles Murphy. I don't know how I forgot his name. But, that you got those 4 guys. And then you got a kid coming out of Florida. What is his name? Cade.
Cade Denoff.
Yeah, a lot of people give him a hard time because they're saying that he played at a private school and he was probably bigger and stronger than everybody there. So it's going to be interesting what he's going to do. He's a 4-star out of Florida, and a lot of people are giving him a hard time because he didn't play at a big school. So he's an early enrollee, so we're going to see what he can do. But defensive end is a position to keep an eye out on. And will Xavier Thomas take his ball and go home? Because, I think I'm glad he didn't go pro because we get a chance to see what he can really do. I know we talked about this, Jason. He struggled with the 3-3-5 alignment, and I don't think he had a very good season last year because he had COVID and the strep throat at the same time. So I want to see what the defense ends are going to do this year because it seems like Clemson has an issue with the getting ran on the left side of the ball last year and other games too. And previous games.
This is going to be Xavier Thomas's money year coming up. You know, it was supposed to be last year after he got sick. You know, he got in to play 7 games, I think, and going into toward the end of the season there, a lot of people don't realize for as little as he played, he was still tied for the team lead in sacks, you know, up until those last couple of games that he missed. But to me, the biggest thing with Thomas is he still needs to do a little bit of maturing off the field. Sometimes I think he makes some decisions he shouldn't make, gets him into trouble. Not nothing major or anything like that, you know, just decisions that kids make, but that you can't make when you're playing big-time Power 5 college football. And next year is going to be make or break for him. I don't think he's going to have a very long leash. If he gets in trouble again, I think that might be the last time. But losing Justin Foster, that's definitely not ideal. They were counting on him coming back this year. Like Xavier Thomas, he got COVID, and he's still not 100% recovered from it. And he caught it last August. So he was born with allergies and asthma, which made it worse for him. But he's got a job opportunity that he wants to go after right now, so he's giving up football. I know there's some people think we're gonna see his name in the transfer portal here shortly. I don't expect that. I think he's done. If he was gonna play football, why wouldn't he come back and play at Clemson, where he's into 2 deep, one of the best defensive ends on the team? That don't make a whole lot of sense to me. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of competition at that defensive end this year, especially behind Murphy. On the other side, KJ Henry's hurt. I think he's going to be out all of spring, recovering from off-season surgery. So there's some reps to be had for the guys behind him, like Maskell and Denoff coming in early, which I think he's one of those guys that's probably going to need a year in the weight room before he's really, really ready to contribute. He might come in and rush the passer on passing downs, but I don't think he's ready to play every down yet. The defensive end is a position Clemson's not very deep at. You know, they got a rotation of 4 guys, maybe 5 guys, but then after that, you know, the talent level drops off.
Yeah, that Upchurch, I think he played a little bit last year, and I mentioned this to Mark one time. If you go look at Simpson, he played a little defensive end in that last game against Notre Dame. You know, I know they going to start moving him around. It looks like what they used to do with Isaiah Simmons a couple of years ago. So that's going to be very interesting too.
Yeah, I think we might see Clemson play a little more 4-2-5 this year. I think that had something to do with why Mike Jones Jr. transferred out. That and the fact he wanted to play inside more and not play that nickel or Sam spot or whatever you want to call it. But you're talking about Simpson. I think that's who we're going to see in that Sam, that nickel spot, that hybrid that, you know, Isaiah Simmons played at one time. And there's a lot of things Brent Venables can do with him. You could line him up on the line of scrimmage. You could line him up, you know, as a linebacker on the outside. There's a lot of things that you can do with him. I don't fully trust him in pass coverage yet, you know, especially against bigger, faster tight ends. But I think he's going to take a big step this year. I think there's going to be a lot of guys on that defense that were young last year that are going to take the step we were expecting them to take last year. I think they're going to take it this year. I think there's a lot of guys on that Clemson team that really suffered not having a full spring and summer in the weight room and in the program. I think being at home and away and not being in the strength program really hurt a lot of those guys, especially the younger guys.
Let's pick off some of these questions in the live chat, and then we're going to talk wide receivers, transfer portal, and early enrollees that are on campus and just started practice on yesterday. So D-Rock Irish is asking Clemson's toughest regular season game this year coming up. What do you think, Jason?
Oh, it's Georgia, man, no doubt. I think Clemson's schedule once you get past Georgia, there's not a lot there's not a lot of meat on the bone, man. You know, Clemson fans don't like it when you talk about their schedule, but the fact is Clemson is just pulled so far ahead of all these other ACC teams, man. It makes for a boring regular season most of the time. I thought it was a little bit different last year with the COVID season and Notre Dame playing Clemson twice, but the last few years, man, Clemson's regular season, especially their home schedule, has not been very good, with Florida State falling so far down and even North Carolina State falling off, and Louisville's not taking, those steps like I expected they would under Satterfield. The Atlantic's it's not as good as it was 3-4 years ago. To me, it might even be worse than the Coastal now, when for a long time it was much better than the Coastal. Clemson's just so far ahead of everybody else. It just makes for a weak schedule. There ain't no other way to say it. Once you get past Georgia, there just ain't much meat on the bone when it comes to that schedule.
Yeah, that offensive line better toughen up, because that particular team is gonna that Georgia defense is amazing. And as far as toughest game outside of Georgia, I kind of agree with you. You just don't know what you're gonna get all these other teams. The NC State's not going to push themselves early. They probably play a weak schedule. But I think they have a lot of guys coming back they can build up on. Like you said, Boston College, maybe. I think that's in Clemson this year. Florida State, they got a transfer guy in, and we'll see what they do. But I think they lost a lot of people on their defense.
I think Clemson's going to blow Florida State's doors off. Dabo Swinney is not going to forget the way they canceled on him after they got to Tallahassee. He was not happy about that. And those are the kind of things Dabo Swinney does not forget. I think Clemson's going to blow their doors off.
The way the schedule stacks up right now, unless things change, Georgia is going to be the only ranked team, at least heading into the season. Now, obviously, teams will rise up and play a little bit better, possibly. But Georgia is going to be the one team that, when the preseason top 25 comes out, is going to be the only team on the schedule that's going to be ranked in the top 25. South Carolina's down, as you guys mentioned. Louisville, Florida State, North Carolina State. I don't expect any of those teams to be ranked. And I think Jason pretty much set it up pretty well in regards to what's happened to the Atlantic Division over the last 5 years, led by Florida State. Has there been a program that's dropped off more than Florida State since 2016? No, not in the country. So it's certainly nothing. I know Dabo Swinney has to answer these questions all the time, and he defends the conference as being a strong conference because that's what all coaches do. They're going to defend the conference. But bottom line, he also, when he's pushed into a corner, basically says, we play the schedule we have. I really can't defend the conference. It's
exactly.
I'm coaching this football team. Everybody else is responsible, these coaches, for their teams.
Hey, see, my problem is, if we go back to the 80s, was people saying the same thing about Florida State? I mean, outside of maybe Virginia every now and then, I mean, who did they play in the 90s? I mean, Clemson has started going down. Maybe I can't really think anybody else. I mean, it's not your job to build those teams. I mean, we had these conversations all the time. It's up to those particular programs to build their own teams up. I mean, if you talk to any other fan bases, like when Miami, when I heard y'all talk about Miami a couple of days ago, that 2001 team and how their schedule was, it wasn't their fault. I mean, you play who you play.
And with Clemson, when you schedule 2 out of conference games against SEC teams, well, who else does that? So
Yeah.
they do about as much as they possibly can. In the one game they're going to play, it's a rivalry game, just is going to be played forever. It's for the Palmetto State. It's tradition. It's going to be played. And then when you stack up a Georgia on top of a South Carolina, which has been anything from a 4-win team to an 11-win team over the last decade, you don't know what you're going to get out of South Carolina from year to year. They're in a slump right now, and they are going to probably need a couple of years to dig out of it. So they're not going to be competitive at that level for a couple of years. And then you look at the non-division schedule, which you always match up as your rivalry game against Georgia Tech. They haven't been real good recently. And then the round robin comes up on Pitt. That's a game at Heinz Field on October 23rd. Pitt's going to be Pitt. They're going to be Pitt. They're going to be 7-5.
I was going to say the same thing. 7-5.
That's who they are.
7-5, no doubt.
You know, again, you can't defend it. You know, you play who you play. I mean, you know, my arguments about history back in the day, Mark. You know, I mean, you can't blame Alabama because African Americans didn't play in the Southeast Conference back in the 60s and 50s. You know, I mean, they would have. You know, you can't blame them. I mean, it's just what it is.
I think Clemson does, you know, as much as they can to make sure their schedule out of conference is as strong as possible. I know they still play the AA team every year. They're going to play one of those small in-state schools every year, and then they play a group of 5 team. But those other 2 games, almost every year, they're going to play South Carolina and then another SEC team. And if it's not an SEC team, it's going to be Notre Dame. There's not a lot of other teams across the country scheduling 2 SEC teams out of conference every year. If there is, there's not many. I think Clemson schedules out of conference probably as aggressively as anybody. And you know, just because the ACC is down and even down a little bit further than it generally is, you know, it's a little unfair to say, hey, you should be scheduling it even tougher than everybody else is just because your conference is down. I mean, it's not, like you said, it's not their fault that they have lapped everybody and other teams can't keep, other programs haven't been able to keep up.
Well, you basically have those ACC SEC matchups: Kentucky, Louisville, Florida State, Clemson, South Carolina, Georgia Tech. And so for those teams, they can't control. So they're playing a rivalry game that everybody wants to see continue every year, regardless of how good the teams are. I think everybody can agree that we want to see Kentucky and Louisville play every year. And we want to see those 4 games that I just lined up. Well, then, as Jason said, Clemson goes out and they can't control South Carolina. South Carolina is going to be whatever they are. And that's typically not, over the course of history, not very good. Over the course of the last 20 or 25 years, it's been a lot of 7-5s. And then for the course of about 3 or 4 years, they were really good under Steve Spurrier near the end of his run. But generally, South Carolina is going to be a 6 or 7 win team, and that's who you're going to get. And then they're going out there and they're scheduling Auburn home and home, Texas A&M home and home, Georgia home and home. It doesn't get much more difficult than that, going out and scheduling that game on top of another SEC team that's typically, you know, a decent bowl team.
Yeah, I think they got 3 more games with Georgia coming up in the next couple of decades, a home and home at LSU, a home and home at Oklahoma. Yeah, they go and then they play Notre Dame several times between now and like 2036 or something like that. But yeah, they schedule aggressively out of conference, as aggressively as, you know, they can, in my opinion, anyways. You know, anything more than that is just a little over the top because nobody else is doing it.
If you look at Southern Cal, they're killing themselves by scheduling Notre Dame, Alabama, whoever else. I mean, I know they used to do it back in the day, but everybody's on TV now. I mean, I don't think Nebraska, back when I was coming up, when they were ruling the rules, I don't think they schedule hard schedules. I mean,
DeAndre, you know how big I am on scheduling.
Yeah.
Talking about scheduling and what we need to do with scheduling. So I have revamped and put together my scheduling formula. But as part of that, just underline what you were talking about, I went back to 1997. Baylor has not scheduled a ranked team out of conference since 1997. 0. And if you look at Baylor's schedule from year to year, I'll pick on Baylor because I love picking on them. And if they want me to stop, then they need to start scheduling somebody decent out of the conference. But it's like Sam Houston State, Lamar, Rice every year. So I just grabbed a team, and you brought up USC, DeAndre, and I don't know if USC would be at the top of this list, but I knew that they would be close to the top of this list. So while I see where Baylor has not scheduled a non-conference game against a ranked opponent since 1997, I counted up how many times USC is playing a ranked opponent during that time. 24 times they have played a ranked opponent in non-conference play. So that's over one per year. Yeah, they're playing Notre Dame every year. And then they're scheduling Alabama. They've had Alabama twice in the last 5 years. Well, they should have played them this last year. They didn't because of COVID. Home and homes against Ohio State and Auburn and Arkansas and on, in addition to playing Notre Dame every year. So college football scheduling is just messed up and needs to be addressed. But as far as Dabo Swinney and Clemson, they can't control the conference. They can't control the South Carolina game. That's going to get played. It's a rivalry game. They can only go out and schedule somebody like Texas A&M, Auburn, or Georgia, and that's about as tough as it gets. So KJ Henry's coming off a season with 23 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. And the Rod Farva is asking, when did he get hurt?
Yeah, Clemson doesn't like to talk about injuries a whole lot. They're not going to be real specific. I'm pretty sure he had some kind of procedure that resulted in an injury or something that it either happened in the playoff game or it was something that had been nagging him all season long. They did not, Dabo Swinney did not say what it was specifically, just that he was going to be out the spring recuperating from an injury. And I've been told that he had some kind of surgical procedure, but I don't know what it was specifically. So sorry about that.
No, we're good. We're good. We got DeAndre on the line, BGPO Football Funk. He's got a YouTube channel. Check him out right there, BGPO Football Funk. I'll put the banner up here in just a second. Also got Jason Priester. Check out his work. It's very excellent work covering Clemson football. So he's on allclemson.com. So allclemson.com, that's on the SI platform, and we'll get his banner up here in just a second.
Right. Well. Going home, I mean, Ohio State scheduled some amazing teams. I mean, I wish we got a chance to see that Oregon game where both teams had a full time to play, develop their players throughout the year. I mean, Ohio State schedules great teams, especially compared to Michigan. I mean, I don't think Michigan schedule hard games like Ohio State does.
Ohio State's got home and homes coming up with Notre Dame, Texas, and Washington, and they overlap to where there's a few seasons where they've got 2 of those teams, like Washington, Notre Dame, or Washington, Texas. So yeah, that's going to be a pretty tough draw.
Excuse me, Mark. I got a question for Jason.
Yep.
Defensive line talent, man, they got to get you hyped, don't it? That Clemson guy, Breezy, Davis. I mean, we were talking about Peyton Page. I mean, that dude is huge. I mean,
Clemson's going to be deep along the interior of the defensive line this year, as deep as they've been in a while. Behind Breezy and Tyler Davis, got guys like third-year guy Ruka Rojo,
Capehart.
Yeah, DeMonte Capehart, Trey Williams, all young guys. Then you got freshman Peyton Page. I think he's 6'5" and 350, 340, something like that. He's a mountain of a man. He's a big old boy. He's going to be eating up double teams along the interior of that defensive line for a few years. It might take him a year to get on the field, but Clemson saw a couple of defensive tackles leave via transfer, and I think that speaks to how much depth and how much talent, how much youthful talent they have, man. I think they've just one of those where they saw the writing on the wall, and they knew if they wanted to play in their final season as much as they wanted to play, they needed to go elsewhere and do it, because those young guys, man, they're coming up fast.
Oh, yeah. And isn't Darnell Jeffries, he's still there too, right?
Yep, Darnell Jeffries is still there too. Capehart, I think he's going to be out most of the spring too. Not all of it, but most of it, coming back, or either Williams, one of those guys. I can't remember which one. One of those young defensive tackles.
That 2018 class, I know we still got some people there, but you got KJ Henry who's still there, and Kendrick, Goodrich, Dixon. I know we need to talk about the running back position, but look who we lost and what his team could have been. Mike Jones. We lost Belt, the defensive tackle. We lost Michaels. I think he went up to Carolina. We lost a lot of guys off that team that didn't go pro. And you know how I felt about Carmen Jackson. I don't really think he should have went, but I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick or a second-round pick. But hey, he did what's best for his family.
Yeah, I would have liked that. I don't never knock a guy for entering the draft because I don't never know that guy's situation, but I think he is one of those guys that if he'd have come back for another season, he could have helped himself. I think he had the potential to be a first-round draft pick if he'd have come back and played well next year. But I still think he's, at worst, a mid-round pick this year. He's got a very high ceiling, and he's a left tackle, man. There's a high premium on left tackles in the league. So somebody's going to like what they see in him. But,
yeah. You flip over to the right side in the pros?
He could play tackle either side. So, if he can play, he could. It's possible. I'm not a big NFL guy, so once they leave college, I don't keep up with them a whole lot. But,
okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility he could go over to play the right side. But I think he might even be more suited to play the right side if I had to, think about it. Yeah, I think he definitely could have helped himself if he'd come back, but he had his reasons for leaving. I don't know what they were. I'm sure I'm never going to knock a guy for leaving early, man, because that's a lot of money to turn your nose up at. You never know when the next snap's going to be your last snap, man, and that's a lot of money on the line for those kids.
Yeah, because I think AJ Terrell has proven me and Bobby wrong a whole lot because, he gave we didn't think that he should have go pro after the LSU game. And in the pros, he's been amazing because I think he was the highest rated cornerback last year in the pros. I think it was. But
yeah, you got to be careful not judging those defensive backs off one back game, man. He definitely got torched against LSU. But, those were NFL receivers and a first-round NFL quarterback that was throwing on those defensive backs, and he had all day to throw the ball, and Clemson wasn't putting no pressure on him, man. It was just nobody stopped LSU that year, man. I never judged Terrell based on that performance. If he'd have been judged based off that performance, he definitely wouldn't have went in the first round.
So are you shocked that Kendrick came back? Because I was saying still he's going to be a first-round pick. Talking about somebody that had a bad game. Are you shocked that he came back this year?
Yes, I thought he was gone. Even after he started teasing on some of his social media stuff that he was coming back, and I still thought he was gone. I've always thought he was a 3-year guy. Just some of the things I've heard. I don't think he doesn't like this. Well, I'm not going to get into all that. I've always thought he was a 3-year guy, and I thought he looked like a guy that played with one foot out the door last year. I thought he looked like a guy at times that played not to get hurt. If you see him, he wasn't. To me, he looked like a guy that wasn't trying to make a lot of tackles. He just looked like a guy that didn't want to get hurt. And I don't know what made him decide to come back. I don't know if the coaching staff talked him into it or if he got his, grade back from the draft advisory board and that kind of opened his eyes because there was some late mocks that still had him going late first round after the season, which was hard to believe. But yeah, I was definitely surprised that Kendrick came back. But so that's a plus for the Clemson defense because if he came back, that tells me that he came back with one goal in mind, improving his draft stock. And to me, that says he's got to rededicate himself to how he approaches the game, which can only mean good things if you're a Clemson fan.
And I want to see Booth finally get out of the doghouse too. Everybody been talking about Booth for years, and it just seems like he can't get over. He can't. I think he led the team on INTs. I'm waiting for Booth to take off. Everybody's been looking at him and Goodrich. They just haven't taken off like they should have.
Booth was hurt a lot last year. That was his biggest problem. A lot of people didn't like Clemson doesn't get into injuries a whole lot, man. They're not going to tell you if guys are banged up. They'll tell you if somebody's going to be out a while, somebody's going to be out for the entire season. But especially last year when, with the COVID protocols and they can just put out a list on game day, here's who's unavailable. And that's all they did. And Dabo Swinney doesn't like to talk about injuries, but Booth was banged up most of the season last year. And those times when he didn't play, that's why. It was because he was hurt. I've never heard he was in the doghouse last year, but I'm not saying he wasn't. But I know he was the year before that. But I think if he can stay healthy, him and Darion Kendrick and Fred Davis, those are 3 former 5-star cornerbacks that Clemson can run out there at corner, man. And they'll all be in their 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, no freshmen. They'll all have experience. 2 of them are upperclassmen. And Mario Goodrich is another guy. He's been banged up a lot. He's been hurt more than he's been healthy. If he can stay healthy, he can be a big contributor too, man. He's got talent too, but he's got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Clemson Talk here with Jason Priester from allclemson.com on SI. Please join him right there. And also DeAndre, BGPO Football Funk right here on YouTube. Wanted to catch up on these receivers, which of course has been one of the strongest positions in the country over the last 10 years. Maybe not quite up to snuff over the last couple, but certainly producing, I would say, the best wide receivers in the NFL over the last 10. Amari Rogers had a huge year, 77 catches, 7 touchdowns. Cornell Powell's guy that was seldom used coming into his senior year, and then really contributed 53 catches, 16 plus yards per catch, and 7 touchdowns. So, Jason, what does this group look like coming up for 21?
I think this group's got a high ceiling, but there's 2 guys, both of them entering their 3rd year, Frank Ladson and Joseph Nagata. They've got to stay healthy. Clemson needs those guys on the field. If they can stay healthy, Clemson's going to have a strong core of receivers next year, led by none other than Justin Ross. Everybody knows what Justin Ross can do. He's not cleared for full contact yet, but I fully expect he will be by the time the season rolls around, barring some kind of major setback that no one's expecting. They just signed 3 freshmen that I think all 3 could play. Not start, but they could play and contribute in Bo Collins, Dakari Collins, and the slot guy, Troy Stellato. With Amari Rogers moving on, Clemson's going to be looking for a new slot guy. There's going to be playing time there. I think we could see some of Will Shipley there. I think we could see some of Troy Stellato there. I think there's a lot of different things Clemson can do in the slot. And I also hadn't even mentioned E.J. Williams, who was really starting to come on as a freshman last year. I think he's going to be a huge focal point of the offense this year. I think Clemson's got 5-6 receivers, that can make major contributions next year, led by Justin Ross. And I think barring some kind of setback, I expect Justin Ross to have a monster season next year.
And I was expecting from Dabo talking about Nagata and Ladson when you heard about them, they were like on Sammy Watson's level. They looked at them like, huh? And I know they might not have got a lot of chances to play because of Higgins and Ross when they came in. But I was like, I just didn't see it. And like you said, it was hurt a lot last year. But the other guy, number 11, I can't remember his name. He out of Canada.
As you.
Yeah, that's somebody else they're big on. Now the kid from California, Collins, Bryson Collins, did him and DJ play with each other?
Oh, Collins, yeah. He's a former teammate of DJ's, so they're very familiar with each other. Already have chemistry. I think Collins is the best of the 3 receivers Clemson signed this season. If one's going to make a major contribution this year, I think it's going to be him. That's not a knock on Dakari Collins, who's out of Atlanta, because I think he's going to be really good too. I just think Bo Collins is a different kind of receiver, and I think he's a little bit more ready right now than Dakari is.
And then another thing that we didn't talk about that I'm sure we're going to get to, the backup quarterback is going to be an issue is Tyson Palamusi transfers.
Pumashon.
Pumashon. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he transfers out because he only got one more year of eligibility. So that backup quarterback, I think DJ got a chance to win the Heisman this year because Clemson doesn't have to mix another quarterback. But if he gets hurt and Lyn-J transfers, we're gonna be in some trouble.
Pumashon redshirted his first year, so he's a redshirt sophomore last year, so he's still a redshirt sophomore now. So he's got plenty of eligibility left. But I will say this about Clemson at quarterback: DJ better not get hurt because there is nobody behind him this year. It's Tyson Pumashon, walk-on Hunter Helms, and then you got freshman Bubba Cunningham coming into summer. So he's not even an early enrollee. I think the competition for the backup spot is going to be fierce. I think Hunter Helms is good enough to beat out Pumashon. And if that happens, I could definitely see Pumashon transferring out. But I don't see him transferring out until after he's graduated. That way he doesn't have to sit a year. He would be a grad transfer. So that might not come to after the season, after his third season. But like I said, DJ better not get hurt because there's not a whole lot behind him. I really like what I've seen out of the Hunter Helms kid, though. We haven't seen a whole lot out of him, but the little bit we have seen, he's looked really sharp. But I mean, he's still a walk-on, and we know what we've seen out of Pumashon. I'm just gonna start calling him Tyson because I trip all over saying his name.
Sounds like you're dead on to me, Jason. You say it the same way every time.
I know what I've seen out of him the first 2 years that he's been in the program, and to me, he looked to me like he even regressed a little bit last year. I don't know why that was. And then he got hurt towards the end of the season. He broke his hand. I don't remember which hand it was. He had to have a plate inserted, but yeah, Clemson needs him to step up this year, man. They need him to step up big time. If not, I could definitely see a scenario in which Hunter Helms just beats him out. And you're talking about a former 4-star quarterback who I think he was one of the 10 best at the position when he came out of high school.
Right.
And, we're talking about a walk-on, man. If a walk-on beats that guy out, that's saying a lot about that walk-on, but that's also saying a lot about him. And I don't mean to knock Helms, man, because that's not what I'm trying to do here. I keep calling him a walk-on, but he has looked like anything but a walk-on. The limited action he has gotten, he's looked very good. He's been very impressive. I'm surprised he didn't get more scholarship offers after what I've seen from him. And he was only a freshman last year, so this is only his second year.
And Bubba Chandler is the 18th rated pro-style quarterback coming out of the 2021 class out of Bogart, Georgia, 6'4", 195.
Yeah, I really like that kid. I called him Cunningham a minute ago, but I really like Bubba Chandler. I think he's got a pretty high ceiling. He was flying under the recruiting radar because he had committed to play baseball for Georgia. And then when Clemson started showing some interest in him as a quarterback offer, he opened things back up, and he decided to go to Clemson, and his recruitment really took off. If they'd have had camps and stuff last year, I'd bet anything he'd be ranked higher than what he is right now. I think he's got a very high ceiling. I wish he could have come in and enrolled early. That would have made the competition for the backup even more fierce. But he'll be here in the summer, and I think that he could come in and definitely push for that number 2 spot. I don't think he'll win it, but I think he can push for it.
Why recruiting so many baseball players to play football? Because that other kid coming in too, he's a baseball player also.
Yeah, Will Taylor, he's a two-way guy. Hey, I'm sure Monty Lee's not complaining, because those guys are on football scholarships and they get to play baseball too. DJ was going to play baseball too that was the plan he had when he first got to Clemson too. He was planning on playing baseball. He throws a fastball mid-90s, but he has decided against that. I don't think he's going to play baseball at all now.
Yeah, because he showed that he's definitely top 5. I mean,
both of those guys, man, Taylor and Bubba Chandler, they're very good baseball players, man. Very good. I think we'll see them on playing both sports. I don't think they're going to be sitting the bench all the time over there in Kingsmore by any stretch.
Now let's get to Will Shipley.
Well, yeah. So since we've started talking about some of these 2021 guys, let's go to the 12 that are on campus already. So DeAndre's given us one of those. Will Shipley, all-purpose back, #1 in the country, #2 in the state of North Carolina, top 30 player in the nation overall. Let's start with him. Is he going to be on the field making an impact already this fall?
Yes, but I'm scared of Clemson picking 5-star running backs because the last two, one transferred, and Feaster didn't have a very good time at Clemson. And this is why I worry about Shipley. I live in North Carolina. So you got 4 AA, 4A, 3 AA, and 3A. So he plays a lower level. It's outside of Charlotte, but he plays a lower level football. Just like I told you about Evans last year from Carolina. It's kind of hard to judge you guys because they're going against smaller schools. And North Carolina's playoff stuff is kind of weird. You could be 1-5 and make the playoffs here.
Same way in South Carolina, man.
So you get, it's a weird game. So maybe we haven't seen this guy play against the type of talent. And Clemson, maybe that's why C.J. Spiller came in, hasn't been doing a very good job at developing these 5-stars, guys like Feaster and Bowman transferred. And I think you even said that Bowman was probably the best recruit ever at running back. And, Shipley, he got everything, but what type of competition was you really playing against on the 3A level in North Carolina?
Yeah, well, I really like Shipley, man. I think he's going to be a good football player. I don't know how much that's going to be seen as a freshman. I think he's definitely going to play. I just don't know how much. Clemson asks a lot out of their running backs, and they are not going to put him on the field till he learns how to pass protect. I think we can see he's a really good receiver out of the backfield, so I can see him lining up in the slot. I can see them having some packages for him, getting him the ball out in space in the passing game. But I think a lot of it depends on how fast he picks up the pass protections. Like we saw with ETN when he was a freshman. ETN, he didn't play a whole lot as a freshman, and that's why. But ETN also came from an offense in high school where he wasn't asked to pass protect at all. He played an option offense. At least Shipley's done some of it. What I think we'll probably see more of, at least the first half of the season, I think we'll see him getting carries, but it'll be more like him coming in later on in the games after defenses is tired and Clemson wants to hit him with a knockout punch or somebody with the speed of Shipley. Like that, to me, that's kind of how to use ETN, the first half of his freshman season, and then he started playing him more and more as he got a little bit more comfortable in the system. And I could see that playing out a similar way with Shipley.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested. Running back outside the offensive line stuff, players, but the running back is very interesting too. Because you don't know what you're gonna get out of out of Dixon. Because I don't think he's been very successful when he came in. And we still really don't know about him. I know we got a couple other guys hanging around. Dukes is there, and I can't remember what's that, Rancher. I'm really not impressed with him. And Page, number 14, he got some run against Wake Forest, but you didn't see him after that game. So I'm kind of I'm kind of interested in see what the running backs are going to do. Get a good look at him.
Yeah, I have not seen anything out of Lyn-J Dixon to convince me that he is an every down feature back at the Power 5 level. Not saying we won't see that this year, but in his 3 years to date, I have yet to see it. So what I think we're going to see is more of a committee type approach. I think there'll be a lot of competition during the spring and the fall, and I think most of it's going to be between Dixon, Ches Malusi, and Kobe Pace. I think those are going to be the 3 guys, especially to start the season, to get the bulk of the carries. I love Rancher, man. Darian Rancher, he's that's the kind of football player you want on your team, man. He's the perfect leader inside the locker room. He's not the most physically gifted guy. I think he's had ACL surgeries on both knees. A former walk-on. He's done everything they've asked of him. But he's not a guy that's going to come out and win the starting job. You know, he might be second. He'd be third on the depth chart maybe. But I just think we're going to see more of a committee when the season starts this year, unless Dixon just blows everybody away in the spring and fall. And personally, I have not seen anything out of him so far that makes me think he can do that. 3 years into his career, and I still think he runs too high at times. And he's also got to prove he can stay healthy, because I think he's been banged up pretty much every year he's been there.
And then we got a kid out of Georgia. He's a big dude too. What, 6'1", 215?
Yeah, but I wouldn't expect Phil Maffa. I wouldn't expect. He's an early enrollee too, I think. But I wouldn't expect. He broke his leg in December, so I'm not expecting. I think he's going to need a year. I would expect more out of him in 2022.
Oh man, I've been hitting Mark with Brett Carter. I told him I'm real excited to see this dude. I know he's not early enrollee, but that dude is a monster. I told Mark, if you go watch his game tape, he'll play 4 positions: quarterback, running back, linebacker. And you know, Dabble gets mad when you call him a linebacker because he said this dude can play anywhere on the field. I mean,
he's not gonna be a they have him listed as a safety, matter of fact.
Right.
I think we'll see him play more of that Isaiah Simmons role. I could definitely see him coming in and playing some safety as a freshman. If they play him at safety this year, he will be the most talented safety on the team the moment he steps foot on campus.
Yeah.
That's how good he is, man. And that's the position in which Clemson is lacking at talent. There's just no star guy there. Landon Sanders is going to miss the entire spring recovering from surgery. And I think that could, although Sanders needs the snaps too and needs the reps because he's got improvements he's got to make. But I think those other guys behind him could benefit from getting those snaps this spring, man, because they need them. Guys like Charleston and Jalen Phillips and Ray Thornton, those guys need to take a big step this year, man, or Clemson's still going to have problems on the back end of that defense, especially at the safety position.
The kid, Tennessee Bookstone, right? He looks pretty big. I didn't see him. Did Galloway transfer at tight end?
Oh, the tight end, Brenningstool. Jake Brenningstool. Yeah, he's another good one, man. He's going to be good too. No, Galloway didn't transfer, but Davis Allen's going to miss most or either all of spring too. You know, like that. If you go and look at Clemson's injury report right now, you see just how banged up they were last year, man. They had a ton of guys hurt, ton of guys needed off-season surgery. As we see, even Trevor Lawrence needed surgery. But with Davis Allen being out and Brennan Stu already on campus, that's going to allow him to get some reps this spring. And tight end's a hard position to learn in the Clemson offense, and depending on how fast he picks it up will depend on how much we see him this year. But whether we see a lot of him or not a lot of him as a freshman, I think we're going to see a lot of him starting next year. I think he's really good. I think he's going to be a really good tight end for Clemson in the years to come.
I don't see why Clemson don't go 5 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers. They always like to keep the tight end in there. If your best 2 corners are matched up against Ross and whoever on the other side, that means those other guys got to be running scot-free. Another thing that scares me about Clemson, we got too many similar wide receivers. We don't got no quick twitch guys like Winfro was. That's what I think hurt us maybe 2 years ago against LSU. We didn't have no change of pace receiver that makes sense. Like this a quick twitch guy. You know, everybody was run deep and he's throwing the ball. You know, long patterns, nobody fast. And I think that hurt us against LSU a couple of years ago.
I think that's hurt Clemson a lot overall in the last couple of years. I think they have got real deep ball heavy and forgotten that they can still attack the middle of the field, man. After the LSU loss, I remember Tony Elliott saying he was going to go back, self-evaluate, and see where he can improve as a play caller. And I think that's something that COVID had a massive effect on last year. Any tweaks that Clemson wanted to make to the offense last year.
I saw that coming too. That that's something I hope we work on. But I just want to see more for a while. The LSU offensive coordinator, he was at Clemson in the 90s. And they went and got Joe, whatever the guy name is, he with the Carolina Panthers. I thought Clemson should have reached out and looked for somebody to help out with the passing attack, not take over for Tony Elliott, but, bring some more creativity in it, just like what you saw with LSU and Alabama. Just bring some more creativity into your passing game. And maybe that would have opened it up for the other guys. But like you said, COVID might have hurt it. But,
I'm a big believer in Tony Elliott. I think he's one of the smartest, brightest offensive minds in college football. I got all the confidence in the world in him being able to self-evaluate and make any adjustments, because I think he knows that, especially after the 2019 season, the teams are starting to pick up on some tendencies with the way he called plays. And I think he knew he needed to make some tweaks. And I don't think he got to make all those tweaks that he wanted to because of the way COVID shut everything down last year. I think we're going to see a little bit different things this year. I know they brought in, Clemson lost their entire support staff except for one guy. So Dabo Swinney had to hire all new analysts this year except for one guy. So there's going to be some fresh eyes and some new ideas in there that he could turn to if he feels like he needs to. And I think we could see Brandon Streeter, have a little bit more of a role in the offense this year too.
Mark, I know we're coming up on an hour, but we ain't touched on linebackers. Anybody you're excited about outside of Trotter? Everybody's big on him. I'm really not a big Skowski or the other guys fan. They play hard, but I'm not really a big fan of their athleticism. Anybody else you big on coming out?
Levonta Bentley. I think that's a guy to watch out for this year. He's third year in the program. I think he played less than 100 snaps last year. If he's going to take that next step, it's now or never. It's got to be now. Balin Spector, another guy out all spring. There's reps to be had. If Levonta Bentley, he was one of the best, linebackers in the country when he was being recruited. So if he's going to do it, it's going to need to be this year. I think we might see him moving on. But I'm thinking that we're going to see a lot of him this year. He's one of those guys. He brings a nastiness to the position, man. He's got a little bit more athleticism than Skowski does, than Spector does. He's big. He's got some speed. But if I had to pick one guy, that's who it'd be, Levonta Bentley.
Yeah, number 17, right?
14 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks.
Yeah. They're number 30. He played in the Notre Dame game a lot the second time. He's a beast too. I can't remember. He start with an M. He's McGuire. McGuire, yeah, he's pretty nice too.
Yeah, I think McGuire's solid, man. He can be a solid player for you. Clemson gets all their linebackers back, man. That's going to be a loaded and crowded linebacker room. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't see a guy or two transfer out after the spring, because there's a lot of linebackers on the roster right now, and there's no way they're going to be able to get all of them snaps.
Yeah, but I know Mark talked about Trotter in one of his videos, but I'm like, I don't see where he's going to play at this year. I know he's an early enrollee too, but I just don't see where he's going to play at, because, you got Venables, both of his boys moving down to that position. I'm just like, it's going to be hard to keep them guys. Even that receiver, I don't think you're going to keep all of them guys. I think some of them are going to move on to somewhere else after the spring too. So there's not enough balls to go around with that deep group.
I think Jeremiah Trotter's going to be an outstanding football player. I just don't think it's going to be as a freshman. Right. Brent Venables asked a lot out of his linebackers, and he does not put them out there until he fully trusts them. And rarely does he trust a true freshman.
I think Latson's going to play the slot. That's one of the questions I've seen. I'm not Latson, but Yeah, Lasson's going to play the slot this year, I believe. Somebody asked.
That's a position that's open right now, man. I think you'll see Brandon Spector get a shot there. I think you could see. It's hard to say, man. I think you can see a number of guys get a shot there. I think Troy Stellato is going to get a shot when he gets to campus, and I think we could see some of Will Shipley in the slot too. But I think first and foremost, it's going to be Brandon Spector's job to lose.
Mark, got one more question, or one more statement. What do you think Venables is going to change up after people saying that he was spying on their signals? And that's one of the things that gave up big runs. They want to get an adjusted. I mean, that's what I saw too. Like that left side was, I guess, having trouble communicating. Look at Ohio State and Notre Dame game. They were giving up big runs on that left side. So some will say it came from signal calls.
Well, they definitely got to do something and make some kind of adjustment where all the players aren't looking at the sideline waiting on the call until a split second before the snap. Mm-hmm. They've been caught in games doing that even before this year. You know, Syracuse a couple of years ago give them fits for 2 or 3 times doing that same thing. But now they got, you know, it was really obvious against Ohio State. It was really obvious against Notre Dame in the first game. But Ohio State, I thought they had an excellent plan. And I don't know whether Brent Venables is stealing signals or not. Frankly, I don't care. It's not against the rules. Everybody does it. You know, I mean, who cares if he's stealing your signals or not? If you got signals that are able to be stolen, that's on you, man. You need to change up how you're doing things. But I think Clemson definitely needs to adjust how long it takes to get the call in on the defensive side of the ball. If not, we're going to see more teams do what Ohio State did in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
I'd like to get both of your thoughts on the transfer portal, since Dabo Swinney's on record as basically saying he's not a big fan of it. It's not going to be how he's going to build a team. And the current list pretty much backs him up, because they haven't picked up anybody off the transfer portal and they've lost 5 players. Of course, in terms of playing time, Mike Jones would be the most significant moving on to LSU as an outside linebacker. But as you guys outlined, the linebacking core is loaded, and he probably saw the writing on the wall there. His time was declining on the field anyway. And of course, on the high end, DeMarcus Bowman was the big one that got away as a 5-star to Florida. But considering the running back position and Etienne gone and that backfield being wide open, it's kind of a surprise that he took off.
Yeah, I think that's the big one right there. Losing Bowman, that hurts. I don't care how loaded Clemson running back room is right now. There is no back on the roster that even comes close to being as talented as DeMarcus Bowman is. You don't lose a guy like that and it not hurt. But yeah, Dabo Swinney, he even talked about the transfer portal yesterday again. He said that, you know, if he has guys leave out of his program, you know, like Mike Jones Jr., instead of looking at the portal, he's going to look to his locker room. He's going to look at his roster. He says that's why he recruits guys out of high school, man. He's gonna go. That's going to be where he goes first.
Well, I know they gave us some thought when the tight end from LSU was available.
I don't think they gave it any thought. I don't think they gave it any thought. They never had I think that was a lot of internet talk, a lot of message board rumor. Clemson never had an open spot at tight end. Clemson just signed Jake Brennan-Stool, who some services thinks the best tight end in the country. And Clemson's got to be careful with how they use the transfer portal, because they sell these kids on the fact that they're not going to just go bring in a transfer to take their roster spot just because. So they got to walk a fine If they would have went out and got that guy, Golly, what's his name? The one that transferred from LSU.
Eric
Gilbert.
Yeah,
Rick Gilbert. If they would have went out and got him, then you got to turn around and tell Brennan, hey, sorry, man, I know we told you so-and-so, but we like this guy better. Now, he's stuck there for a year, and I just don't think that's how Dabo Swinney is going to operate. I think there's going to come a time when he is going to have to use the transfer portal. He might not like it, but he's going to have to do it. There's going to be a guy or two transfer after the spring and he's going to have to fill that hole. And you can't go recruit guys out of high school in the spring. That's when we're going to see Dabo Swinney tap into that transfer portal, is when there's a guy or two transfer after the spring and he's got an immediate hole to fill.
Yeah. But yeah, it's beat them the last 2 years. I mean, Joe Burrow's transfer.
But you talking about a quarterback and a running back. Clemson said at quarterback, and like you said, they lost Bowman to the transfer portal, but they still full at running back right now. I mean, they still full. Yeah. And Dabo Swinney, he is a stickler for numbers when it comes to them scholarships, man. Yeah. He doesn't like to waver too much. He likes to have so many guys at each position, and he don't like to cross over that.
Yeah.
Ricardo in the live chat is asking me, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, do you think Vandy wins the SEC East? Yes or no? Now, all my predictions are exclusive on Patreon, but as a bonus, I'm going to let this one out early because you can get the jump on the over and unders. Vandy pulls a shocker and they win the SEC East. So if you think I'm serious and I don't have my tongue firmly planted in my cheek, then yes, I'm going to answer that question. If you're going to ask that question, I'll answer it. Sure, Vandy wins the SEC East.
I think he must be talking about college baseball, man.
Oh, they talking a little college baseball.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Me. That question is directed toward me. If they're talking in the chat, that's one thing, but he's asking me that question. All right.
I don't think they ever won an SEC champion. I don't think they even won the Southern championship when they was in the Southern division. I don't think
SEC championships for Vandy or South Carolina.
Well, South Carolina's only been there for what?
Yeah, since 92. But we're working on 30 years now.
Yeah, that's true.
No division championships for South Carolina. So Arkansas joined the same year, and they have yet to win the SEC, but at least they've been to the conference championship
once.
3 times. No, 06, 02, 95, 3 times for
I remember 95 because then they lost to Florida. Greg Hill was the running back, I believe.
Yeah, they got blasted by Florida. I think 31-3 in 95. They lost to Georgia in 02. They lost to Florida in 06.
I don't remember none of those. 02 and 06. That SEC must have been really there those 2 years. Yeah.
All right. Excellent stuff from these two. Always enjoy talking Clemson football with DeAndre and with Jason. Again, DeAndre's got a YouTube channel, BGPO Football Funk. BGPO Football Funk. And Jason does a nice job covering Clemson athletics, Clemson football with allclemson.com. Allclemson.com. It's on the SI platform. All right, guys. Appreciate you stopping by as always. And you're welcome back anytime.
Hey, man. All you got to do is ask, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Good
Thank
stuff.
You,
okay,
Jason's one of the best, boy. He be doing some great articles. I love him.
Absolutely. There's no question. We only ask on the best here.
Thank y'all, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we will catch everybody at 6 o'clock tomorrow night, 6 Eastern for our call-in show. Meanwhile, we're going to be talking Georgia, Oklahoma, and Ohio State tomorrow. So look out for those videos. See y'all later.
Georgia one. I can't wait to see them. You have a great night, Mark.
You too.